Welcome to Millennial, the home of pretend adulting and real depressing sad talk. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Pamela.
So we're recording Wednesday after Election Day. Our bubbles have been burst.
I kind of wanted to I think that's a great way to start it out, just to kind of talk about our initial reactions and what we were thinking and feeling as this was all unfolding last night. Personally, it felt like 2016 again, particularly in the lead up to, the 11 o'clock hour. I really started getting nervous around 8 p.m. Because I was watching my home state of Georgia, and the more turnout that was being reported, the greater the margins were. And when you see, a case where like 90% of the state is reporting and there's a multi-point gap between the candidates, that's going to be pretty insurmountable, especially in a swing state like this. So seeing that honestly made me worried about how the rest of the evening was going to turn out. And it turned out to be pretty accurate predictor for where things went nationwide.
Yeah. Mentioning 2016, I think we all went into this being excited, but remembering 2016 and hopefully to some extent being prepared for that outcome again, because we all still remember that feeling and it's not a good feeling, but at least we've experienced this before. And yeah, similar to you, Laura, the numbers that were coming in all night were just not looking good. I can't really recall any good news throughout the evening. One big surprise is that we did find out so quickly that Trump was going to win this election.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. It's so disappointing. I think there was just so much genuine excitement and hope that we were finally going to close the door on Donald Trump. And that's what I was so excited about going into yesterday. And what makes me most sad today is that we don't get to close the door and we have to think about this fuckface for another 4 years. And now we have to worry about his cabinet and we're going to have another 4 years of chaos.
Yeah.
And
I mean, honestly, I don't even know if we're going to have to worry about him for 4 years. He's old as fuck. He's not in good health. What I'm really worried about is his second in command. And I think that was always the plan.
And putting people in his cabinet like RFK Jr. And God knows who else is going to be in there. How are you feeling, Pam?
Yeah, I the same as you both. I'm very disheartened. I think that's like the distinction for me between 2016 and 2024. I think that the hope was that everybody saw what we had to go through in 2016 and the 4 years that came after, and you start thinking to yourself, like, how can any rational person really want to go back to that? I think Trump really played it smart with his rallies. He never really sat there and said, this is exactly what I'm going to do when I get into office. But obviously, we kind of know that they have a plan in place. It's just being poorly kept under wraps, right? Yeah. So I think hearing all of that come out and still seeing some of the demographics coming out of who really helped push him over the edge to win this election is super disheartening. I'm personally so ashamed of the Latino vote.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that other people have, like demographics that they're really ashamed of, but like that one to me.
Yeah. Well, to your point, Pam, something I think is really important to call out, and we need to say this because people on our side of the ideological spectrum need to sit with this. They need to hold it and need to acknowledge we lost this election fair and square. We not only lost the electoral college, we lost the popular vote by about 5 million.
That's what makes it different from 2016 too. Is like, and then you realize that all of those people voted for hate. They voted to take away basic human rights from people that they don't care about. And you want to believe that you live in a world that's better than that. That's better than your neighbor who's different from you saying like, you don't look like me, so like you don't deserve to exist, basically.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that's so confusing about it is if you look at some of the states, Missouri is a perfect example. Missouri voted, they gave all their electoral votes to Donald Trump. So they voted for Trump. They voted for their Josh Hawley. Hawley's from Missouri, right?
Yeah.
And then they also voted to enshrine abortion rights in their state's constitution to protect access to abortion. They voted to increase their state's minimum wage, and they voted against giving a wage increase to law enforcement officers. So the divisions in this country are continuing to get murkier and murkier because you have people who are supporting top of the ticket candidates that are against all of the very ballot measures they want to support in their communities. And I think this is an area where Democrats have fucked up. I think that we've spent so much time trying to high road people, trying to play the moral authority and having that kind of be our, no pun intended, trump card. When the reality is clearly the populace is not voting on that basis. That's not how they're making their decisions, not nationally. Maybe in their communities, they're voting for, improvements to help themselves, but they're not thinking that way on a national scale. Democrats they have been operating under a very old campaign model, and they're going to have to figure it the fuck out because if they want a chance to turn this around in 2028, they're going to they need to completely reassess the way that they are campaigning in this country and
Yeah.
addressing this populace, because this isn't it.
Yeah. I haven't looked too much at the media today at all. I don't want to watch any of it right now. But from what I've seen on social media, there's already talk of, was there too much of a focus on Project 2025? There clearly was not enough of an acknowledgement that inflation is really a key issue for people. And Trump was running on that a lot. So if we get one thing, I think he's bullshitting, of course, but we can just pretend that if we get one good thing out of this, it's going to be lower grocery store prices. I don't believe it's going to happen, but that's what he campaigned on. So now he has to answer for that. The Dems just were not connecting with people. And the one stat that kills me, Kamala Harris, as of the time we're recording, has about 67 million votes nationwide. Biden got 81 million. She is short 15 million people who voted for Biden did not come out for Kamala Harris or switch their vote to Donald Trump. That kills me. That really makes me wonder if putting in Kamala was the wrong choice now. I
just don't know who else they could have plugged in so late.
I'm saying they should have just went with Biden anyway.
Oh, I see.
He sucked. Yeah. He was an embarrassment. But would we have gotten a better outcome today? Trump sucks and was an embarrassment, but but people like him. People liked Biden.
Yeah, I don't.
But the thing is, Biden's an old white man, and I think that that's like something that we need to address the elephant in the room. I really think that right now what you're seeing a lot is people saying that Kamala was just too liberal, and that's why she didn't win. I call bullshit on that because she's actually a fairly still conservative.
Oh yeah.
Democrat. We've talked about that before on the show. But what she also is a woman who also happens to be BIPOC. She's Black, but also biracial. And I think that like we're starting to see now that was just too tall of an order to ask for this country to put all their faith in somebody like her, despite how qualified she is. And that's really ugly to think about, but it's also something that I think that we need to face and reconcile with.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, I think obviously on the basis of that alone, Pam, unfortunately, she was already operating at a disadvantage. Right. Fair or unfair, was the case. Another part of this is a loss of trust in Joe Biden. If you look at Biden's approval ratings, particularly in the blue wall states, the states that really mattered for turning the tides on this election, Biden's favorables are really low in those places. Kamala Harris is his vice president. And I don't know if it would have been, in retrospect, I don't know how possible it was that Kamala Harris would be able to turn around that distrust of what happened with Biden in just a couple of months. And
Yeah.
to her credit, I think that she ran a really, really strong campaign given the time and resources that she had. Honestly, Biden should have done what he said he was going to do originally, which was aim to be a one-term president, a transition president. He should have announced that he was not seeking re-election back at the 2022 midterms and given Kamala some runway to start reaching voters, start differentiating herself from him. It would have given her a much better chance. But I don't know if it was pride on Biden's part, on the party's part, a little bit of both. I don't know what, but it is clear to me that the shadow of that horrible debate performance that really clued the rest of the country into how bad things were with Joe Biden, I think that still hung over her, no matter how well she did.
Yeah. Well, and to the point about announcing he is stepping down around the midterms, let the Dems run a primary. Let's test some people. Let's see who people get most excited about. And we were all so excited here on the show, at least, about Kamala Harris. And she was incredibly qualified. Like you said, Laura, I agree with you. She ran an excellent campaign. And in 3 months, it's just incredible. And it gave us hope maybe about the future of election cycles. But yeah, we should have had a primary. And I think at least on the right, you hear a lot of people talking about how Kamala just kind of like stole it away from Joe Biden, but maybe a lot of people were perceiving it that way on the left too. And another thing I want to talk about today is we really all need to, I've been using this phrase in the last year, chronically online. We're all chronically online, or a lot of people are. And you get this alternate perception of reality, and it's not how things are going outside of your social media feeds. And I've just been thinking about this a lot over the last 24 hours because there was so much confidence in my social media feeds about Kamala Harris clinching this. I saw all these posts. Oh my God, the lines in Pennsylvania and Detroit. I've never seen lines like this before. We've got it, y'all. And everybody just assumes like, oh, those long lines are going to be in Harris's favor. Why are people assuming that? You don't know who these people are voting for.
No,
it's true. And I will say too, in relation to that, I mean, we also put a lot of faith in the new generation of Gen Z voters turning out. And it turns out a lot of young Gen Z men are super conservative and they're drinking that Kool-Aid based on, a lot of these like talking heads that are out there now for them.
Yeah.
Like the Joe Rogans of the world, the Andrew Tates. And, but if you exist online, you think Gen Z is so progressive, they're going to save us all. And the truth of the matter is that it's just, we can't. It takes more than just one generation. Yeah. And I hope that that's a wake up call for them as well, as a generation to like fully understand that like their generation also has nuance.
Yeah. Well, I think we had this rude awakening for millennials back in 2016.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The break for Clinton and Trump in 2016 amongst millennials was about 50-50. Right. And I think, we don't have all the demographic data in, but just from what I've seen, I've really mostly been looking at Georgia, obviously, but like the youth turnout numbers just on their own were not enough. They weren't what we needed. And we had amazing voter turnout in Georgia. We literally had, it was incredible. I was telling y'all about this. When early voting ended on Friday, we had 55% of total eligible votes in early voting. Those are unheard of numbers. Also turns out that Republicans got a taste for early voting this year. So that is an assumption that Democrats need to let go of now. We have to let go of this idea that early voting is automatically going to favor Democrats, because we're going to be in for some rude surprises in the future, just like this one.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think we were all even, as of, earlier in the night, still telling people around us, hey, just like wait, because Democrats tend to vote early. They haven't counted those numbers yet. It turns out that was kind of a blindside for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there was more massive Republican early voter turnout. So to your point, that is a trend that we all have to accept now. And we can't keep living in the world of how to run a campaign in the early 2000s, because it doesn't work anymore. Yeah, I can't say that I'm surprised that this happened. We knew it was a possibility. But at the same time, I felt stunned at how decisive it was.
Yeah.
I thought, I didn't think we'd be having this conversation until a week after the election.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's really depressing to look at the map, and you look at some of the states. It's close, but it is still a clear victory for Trump. I really thought Kamala was gonna take Pennsylvania. I just had a good feeling about it. I never had a good feeling about Nevada. I said it on the show. Arizona, basically Nevada, so I didn't have a good feeling about that one either.
And that's also based on the way that Biden won too. I think we were all bamboozled. But I think Andrew brought this up, that, by the fact that Biden won with the blue wall, which is a great strategy. And we just thought that because Kamala was the second in command, that she would also end up securing the blue wall. And it turns out that it flipped, and we're back to the 2016 map.
And I've been saying this a lot on the show over the last year or so. It's only been 4 years since Biden beat Trump. So I had been optimistic for a while that Biden would be able to do it again. A lot has changed, but I kept trying to remind everybody that it had only been 4 years. So I felt like if we effectively beat Trump in 2 rounds of midterms, we beat him in 2020, we would beat him again this time. But I think misinformation is just such a big factor here too. The economy is great. It's fantastic. Things are going well, setting inflation aside. And yet people have been told the economy is terrible. We know Trump is going to immediately start claiming credit for the economy day one. People are getting scared about the border and security. And, they just start drinking that Kool-Aid and they can't let go.
Yeah. Was so funny to me, though, was and I mean, this is all exit polling, right? So like you do have to kind of take it with a grain of salt, but in general, immigration, while it was in the top 5 issues in exit polls, it was usually like in the bottom 2. Usually abortion came ahead of immigration, even in these swing states. But I think, again, that what it's telling us is that it really was about the economy, and the fact that the Democrats could not connect with voters to make them understand the state of the economy. The reality is Trump is going to be walking into a much healthier economy than the one he left. So he's going to be able to tout reductions in inflation and these really impressive jobs numbers and unemployment, reductions that the Biden administration has brought in. He's going to take credit for all of it, which, I mean, that's something that we've seen time and time again with the handoff of power from Democrats to Republicans is Republicans usually get to inherit a much healthier economy than the one they leave behind. And
then Democrats, they fuck it up and we have to come back in and fix it.
Yep. And Democrats have not done a good job with messaging around that to help people understand it.
I still have relatives that say like, oh, but like the economy was so much better under Trump. It's like, that's Obama's economy
Right.
to you, ma'am.
And
Like,
Obama did start bringing that up on the campaign trail, but I was just seeing Shane
too
in our
little, too
Discords,
late.
saying it was too late. And this would have been another benefit of Biden stepping down 2 years ago to give Kamala or whoever else the chance to ramp up.
I do think that, like, you know, after the dust settles, that's going to be the sour taste that stays behind in people's mouths, is like what could have been if she had been allowed to campaign earlier.
Yeah.
Which I hate to say this, but I almost kind of feel like we would still be where we are, just
maybe
based on the fact that she was too diverse, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, that is, I mean, I hate to say it, but this is another reminder: America does not seem ready for a woman president. And it sucks, but just that has to be a factor here after Hillary. And I think we all hope that after Hillary, things would be different 8 years later, but clearly not.
And that's considering Kamala didn't even have an email scandal. You know, she didn't really have a.
Yeah.
I know. I don't think we ended up with the October surprise that Laura was thinking we would, but
no,
she honestly came out pretty clean.
Honestly, I think what it comes down to for a lot of people is that trust issue of, you were the number 2 in charge. If you didn't know that Biden was declining so rapidly, that's a problem because you were in the number 2 role. But if you did know and you didn't do anything, that's also a huge problem. I really think, yes, there are a lot of factors we have to look at here. Her demographics are definitely something that already had her at a disadvantage in what is, quite frankly, a racist and sexist country. It does not help that she was carrying baggage from the top of an administration that didn't give her a ton of visibility during that first term.
They really hit her in the background.
Yeah, they really did. And I don't know if that was an attempt to shield her from, having his muck thrown on her, or if they were worried that she was going to outshine him. That can sometimes happen too. But no matter which way you slice it, she was not properly supported. She did not have the proper infrastructure or party support or the amount of time that she needed to be able to win this campaign. Mm-hmm. That's what we're seeing now.
Yeah.
It's a huge fuck up on the Democratic Party, on the Biden administration, to be totally honest. I feel like we have to hold that. I think it's so important for progressives who are like, hey, the Democratic Party is the closest thing to a party that is ideologically aligned to me that I have to vote for. Whether you're like a moderate Democrat or a far left Democrat, we have to hold this. We lost this, and it's because they're playing a different game.
Mm-hmm.
We are playing a game in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The number of people too that vote third party just has to stop, because there's no point. And, I know that people throw away their votes that way because they assume it doesn't make a difference, but we saw how it did make a difference in some of these swing states this time around.
Uh-huh.
And also we saw that, Trump's base was kind of worried about that too, with Kennedy still being on the ballot in certain states. They tried to pull him off ballots to get more votes for Trump. It's like, that's how that it does matter. If they're over there arguing tooth and nail to get someone pulled off a ballot last minute, which they weren't able to do because it was too late, just to get their candidate more votes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
and you also have massive turnout, especially in areas of Wisconsin, for Jill Stein. I mean, Jill Stein carried some of these really impactful counties by 33%. Did she win? No, but that's effectively taking votes away from what more likely would have been a more Democratic lean vote. But a lot of that is because of dissatisfaction with the way the administration has and continues to handle Israel and Gaza. And I mean, the reality is, listen, I don't like the way it's being handled either. I
Yeah.
don't think Trump is going to come in and become the savior of Gaza.
No.
Oh, you mean not like he
And the
claimed during the
Ukraine.
debate?
Yeah.
He's just going to be like, stop it. And they're going to
Right.
stop.
Right.
Right.
Right. That's how
And the
that
war
works.
in Ukraine will continue.
Right.
Wasn't he promising day one he's going to be ending that thing?
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Right.
Oh, even before he's inaugurated, remember? He was like, I'll stop it before the inauguration. Like, it's just inane bullshit. But the thing is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, the fact that he lies, it clearly does not matter.
Yeah. I saw this tweet. Harris's incredibly misguided campaign aside, the way in which millions of young men in this country have been groomed by celebrity misogynists to hate and rail against women is truly horrifying. So, yes, there's a lot of that happening on shows like Joe Rogan and all that. But we got big celebrities on our side, too, and they don't seem to help at all. Like, they try, and I'm glad they do. This shit doesn't move the needle. I'm taking back everything I said about Taylor Swift moving the needle. It doesn't help.
No. No, there was no Taylor bump this time.
No, there was no Beyonce bump. There was no Gaga bump, Bruce bump, none of it. It's not helpful. And we need to stop, maybe, like, just fucking do away with these celebrity endorsements and all this shit. It clearly does not help.
Mm-mm.
And like, man, there's so much to think about today. It's like, I'm thinking about all those Republicans who came out against Trump too within Trump's cabinet. And
now
Trump
they're
voters,
all turning, like they're backtracking.
Are they? Well, like John Kelly.
Some of them are,
like John Kelly, he wouldn't, or Mike Pence. Like, how can people look at these very real statements, Pence, John Kelly, the list goes on and on, what all these people are saying, and still being like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to vote for that guy again. That's one of the things that blows my mind most.
Yeah.
It's crazy that the RNC was like backing him, though. I really thought they were going to put their eggs in another basket.
Well, now they won't, because the future, like at this point, the future of the Republican Party has been sealed with MAGA. Like, this was their opportunity for a clean break to start over. They're not going to do that now. So, when you think about the more like quote unquote traditional Republicans, like the Liz Cheneys, the Adam Kinzingers, there is not a world where this Republican Party goes back to that. It's done.
And furthermore, Trump will have an iron grip on the Republican Party until the day he dies. This just solidified his power in this party.
Well, good thing he's the oldest sitting president.
Yeah, well, fair enough. But I was thinking about that last night too. Just the fact that, we were hoping this would be the end of Trump, and he'd still try to get his influence out there, but he lost another campaign. Not this time. And now he's going to be controlling this party until, like I said, the day McDonald's gets him.
Yeah. I mean, think about the message it sends, like 34 felonies, attempt to overthrow the last election, that he lost fair and square because he's a sore loser who didn't want to go to jail. And I mean, we got to be honest with ourselves. America came out yesterday and said, yeah, let's do that again.
Wild, because felons can't even vote.
Well, in some places.
Trump could vote for himself.
Yeah, but it's just insane that like so many people that are incarcerated or that come out of incarceration can't vote. And
it's also really important for us to call out that we also lost the Senate. I know we've been really focused on top of the ticket right now, but that is also bad. I will say we knew going into this that Dems were going to lose the Senate. We had a super narrow lead there. So that's gone. There are still a number of House races that are outstanding. You need 218 reps to control the House. Right now, Republicans have 204. Republicans have 182. Or sorry, I have it totally flipped. Democrats have 182. Republicans have 204. There are still a number of outstanding seats. Republicans are way closer to that 218. They've also flipped more seats. They've flipped 5 seats that had been held by Democrats. Dems have only flipped 2. So I think, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but I think that we are heading into a reality where both chambers of Congress and the executive are controlled by the same party. And it's the MAGA party. It's not the Republican Party.
I think one big question now is, how are we going to protect our sanity going forward? And I think that's going to take a few days for us all to process, maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months. I remember after 2016, I really tried to tune out of the 24-hour news coverage. And I will be continuing to do that. And I think at this point, everybody just needs to kind of sit with themselves and their family and friends and maybe their therapists and ask themselves, how do I protect myself and the people I love and care for? Because this is what we're going to have to deal with for 4 years. We didn't even bring up the Supreme Court today. That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
Just, I would encourage everybody first and foremost to think about how they're going to be looking out for themselves, because how are you going to get through the next 4 years? How are you going to feel comfortable? Does that mean, and I know this is way easier said than done, but does that mean moving? Does that mean making some other types of changes in your life where you feel safe and protected? I hope everybody takes some time to think about how they're going to look out for themselves, because this is what we are stuck with now.
And each other, right? Our communities,
Yeah.
like having each other's backs is like protecting ourselves. Absolutely. It's like what they tell you on airplanes, like secure your oxygen mask before you help somebody else. Like we really do have to protect yourselves, but it's, the next step is then, how do I show up for my family? How do I show up for my community? Maybe people aren't going to get what they need, but individuals can make differences in each other's lives. And I mean, realistically, I feel like I'm looking at at our panel. And I mean, I've known both of you for so long, and just thinking about the litany of things that we know are on the table that have personal impacts for each one of us. Like all of the precedent for privacy law that provided the justification for legalizing gay marriage. That also applies to interracial marriage, by the way. Thinking about the way this country is going to behave towards immigrants and people of immigrant descent, thinking about what's going to happen with healthcare. I mean, these are all very real things that impact every person sitting on this panel right now. And I think it's so important, if you are feeling the way that we are all feeling today, that you give yourself the space, process it, feel it, but don't live in the despair, because the people that you love and care about are going to need you to have their back.
And I would also just say, just, stay ready. I know that there's a big sense of security, like living in California, for example. So much of what will probably go down will not affect Californians first. And that's because, we have a governor in place that isn't afraid to fight back, make sure that everything is done to protect Californians, even the ones that voted for Trump, who are also going to, by the way, benefit from California making sure that, abortion is still legalized, for example. But yeah, just I think that the important thing is to stay ready and to have empathy for other people that are in states that are going to need more help. And, when there's an opportunity for you to show up, it's important to show up.
And I'd also encourage everybody to try and hold on to some hope. One thing that we've been hearing a lot over the last year is, if Trump wins, democracy is over. It's finished. America is done for. Stay informed, be prepared, stay on your heels, but try not to think that way. Try to assume that it's it's going to be okay. Because what is the point of worrying every day? Oh my God, our democracy is over. America is ending. Let's see how things go. Try not to assume the worst. And getting back to something I said earlier, I think we all need to have a reckoning with our relationship with social media and realize that what we're seeing online is not how this country actually looks and thinks and feels. It's a very different world out there.
Yeah. I did go ahead this morning and I haven't closed any social accounts. I'm not making decisions about that, but I did remove apps from my phone because it's not helpful
No.
right now.
I think Twitter will be the first to go for a lot of us. Like really go.
That honestly, if I think about places where I might be closing accounts, that's one of them.
Have you guys gotten more Trump ads than normal? Because my feed was full of them.
Yep.
Yesterday, and I couldn't even say usually with ads you can just say oh, I don't want to see more of this, and it was impossible to get them.
Yeah,
Elon was probably letting him advertise for free on Twitter.
Yeah, he was totally manipulating the algorithm.
One more thing I wanted to add about protecting your peace is I know the holidays are coming up. It's going to be a tough time for a lot of people that have to deal with family that thinks differently than you. And I would just start thinking now about how you can respectfully exit out of conversations you don't want to have, because, I think it's inevitable somebody will bring up Trump or any kind of policy. And so if you have a plan in place to exit out so you don't have to sit there and listen to somebody spew nonsense, then I think you'll be happier for it. Even if it's just finding a buddy cousin and just being okay, if I give you the sign, we're going on a cousin walk or something.
Yeah.
Find yourself a buffer, figure out what you're going to say in advance so that you're not necessarily poking the bear, but you're not escalating things. You don't have to sit there and listen to it. I think you'll just enjoy your holiday a little bit more, and you deserve to have a good holiday. So.
Or honestly, can you just fake sick? You just pretend you're going, and then the day before, I'm not feeling well. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah.
Can you maybe put together a little Friendsgiving with a couple of friends, a little potluck style? Hey, everybody bring over an app. Let's just chill, watch a good movie, try to enjoy the holiday season. I mean, just lie to your family to get out of it if you can. That would be my recommendation. I would. Yeah. I mean, I have the pleasure of not having to attend Thanksgiving with my some Republicans family members this year, but I would probably lie if I was planning on it.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're comfortable with it takes some work to get to the point where, it took me work to get to the point where I was comfortable doing this, but just shut that shit down if you can. If people start, because when people bring this up, especially at family holidays, they're trying to start a fight. They're looking to pick an argument.
It's not interacting in good faith.
No.
That's the whole thing.
So I think literally just saying, you've told me everything about how you feel based on how you voted. I don't need to hear anymore, and then walk away.
Yep.
Yeah. You kind of know who's a brick wall in your family and who you could maybe sway, to a direction that's a little bit better. But yeah, just stay away from the brick walls, there's no point.
So in light of the news and our unique recording situation this week, we are not going to do an After Dark. However, we are going to plan some sort of benefit for all patrons, hopefully happening sometime in the next couple of weeks. We're going to try to host a little get together for everybody where we can all talk and get our feelings out and stuff like that. And I will also say that, as was teased on the show, I did host an election night party, and it was fun. Until
they called Pennsylvania.
Well, luckily people didn't stay too late. So by the time Pennsylvania was called, everybody had left. It was a good time despite, the outcome. But I did put together some stuff for the party that I'm very proud of. And I was going to post pictures of it all on my own social media, but now I'm too ashamed and embarrassed and depressed to do that. So instead, I will be posting photos from the party on Patreon. And I think the listeners will enjoy some of the things that I came up with. So do look forward to those photos. I'll post them the next day or two. Yeah. So yeah, we'll be back next week with the normal show. But yeah, this was a good discussion, I thought.
Yeah.
And yeah, everybody just, take care of yourself, look out for each other, hope for the best. That's all we can do at this point. It's stay informed, but give yourself some breaks too. You can't spend all your time focused on this. It's just not healthy.
No.
All right, y'all. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We love you all. Thanks for your supports.
Yeah. We love you guys. We have, to the extent that we can, we have y'all's backs, and we know you have ours too. And we really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Laura, it's crazy to think we've now been through 2 Trump points on this show.
Don't even. I also, JD Vance being the first millennial to ascend to executive office just makes me want to throw myself out a window.
Can we just not claim him?
I don't.
I guess, yeah.
We millennials have canceled one more thing. It's millennial JD Vance.
Yeah,
We're canceling JD Vance as a millennial, something like that.
Yeah, well, apparently millennials also canceled voter turnout. Because I'm sorry, we kind of fucked up too, just based on the demographic data that's out there right now. So
yeah. Good
job, America. I'll end on this. This was my feeling of frustration last night. I was just like, okay, I guess this is what we want. Guess this is what we want. Let's
try to
see
take
how
an
this
optimistic
goes.
look. Okay, America, this is what you want to be. All right, let's do it. Here we go. I'm still debating what to do with my Kamala merchandise. By the way, my closing thought is this whole 3-month Kamala campaign now just feels like a dream to me. Like this, it didn't even happen now. I feel like it didn't even happen.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, everybody. Thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah. Take care of yourselves.
Yeah.
And we'll plan on seeing you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye y'all.